Mikhail Gorbachev's rise to power in 1985 marked a turning point in the Cold War and the history of the Soviet Union. Recognizing that the USSR was facing deep economic and political stagnation, Gorbachev introduced a series of radical reforms under the banner of New Thinking. This transformative approach aimed to rescue the Soviet system from collapse, both domestically and on the global stage. At the heart of Gorbachev's reforms was perestroika, which means restructuring. Perestroika sought to overhaul the Soviet economy by introducing limited market mechanisms and decentralizing decision-making. Gorbachev recognized that the state-controlled economy was inefficient, plagued by corruption, and unable to meet the needs of the people. Factories produced goods of poor quality, and shortages were widespread. Through perestroika, Gorbachev hoped to boost productivity, modernize industry, and improve the quality of life for Soviet citizens. However, the reforms struggled to gain traction as the deeply entrenched bureaucracy resisted change and the economy began to falter even further. Alongside perestroika was glasnost, meaning openness. Glasnost represented a dramatic shift in Soviet society, as it promoted greater transparency in government and allowed for unprecedented freedom of speech. Under Gorbachev, censorship was eased, and the media was given the freedom to criticize the government, something unheard of in the tightly controlled Soviet system. Glasnost also encouraged public debate and the exposure of long-hidden truths, such as the extent of Stalinist repression and the scale of corruption within the Communist Party. This openness energized Soviet society, but also unleashed pent-up frustrations, as people began to demand even more sweeping changes. Gorbachev's new thinking extended beyond domestic reform. He radically changed Soviet foreign policy, moving away from the hardline stance of his predecessors and toward greater cooperation with the West. Gorbachev believed that the arms race with the United States was unsustainable and that global security could only be achieved through dialogue and mutual trust. This shift was evident in his willingness to engage with US President Ronald Reagan, leading to significant breakthroughs in arms control, including the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces (INF) Treaty in 1987, which eliminated an entire category of nuclear weapons. In addition, Gorbachev sought to reduce Soviet involvement in costly foreign conflicts. He withdrew Soviet troops from Afghanistan, ending the decade-long war that had drained the USSR both economically and morally. Gorbachev also signaled to the Eastern European communist states that the Soviet Union would no longer intervene militarily to prop up their regimes, breaking with the long-standing Brezhnev doctrine. This decision paved the way for the peaceful revolutions of 1989 as the people of Eastern Europe dismantled their communist governments, starting with the fall of the Berlin Wall. Gorbachev's new thinking was a bold attempt to save the Soviet Union through reform and modernization, but it had unintended consequences. Perestroika and glasnost weakened the central control of the Communist Party, leading to greater political instability. Ethnic tensions, long suppressed by Soviet authoritarianism, flared up across the republics. Gorbachev's foreign policy shift, while earning him international praise, led to the unraveling of the Eastern Bloc and signaled the beginning of the end for the Soviet Union itself. By 1991, the USSR was in a state of crisis, and Gorbachev's vision of a reformed socialist state was crumbling. His new thinking had fundamentally altered the Cold War and reshaped the global order, but it also hastened the collapse of the Soviet system he sought to preserve.